What's going on YouTube? I just wanted to go ahead and make the guide for the rogue barrage build I've been using. Again, we've killed all the Ubers, Lilith, Duriel, all those. Mapping and running dungeons is super smooth. 100s are free. We've gone up to 100 pit with this build. I typically farm 89s just because it takes about 3 to 4 minutes to get through an 89, and it takes about 6 to 8 minutes to get through a 99. You only get 10 more, materials, so 89 has kind of been the number that I've liked to run. So we'll get right into it. But if this is helpful, please like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. It helps, let me know what videos you guys are liking and which ones kind of aren't really doing it for you. So please go ahead and do that, and let's get right into it. So we'll just jump right into the gear. For those of you that watch my rapid fire, a lot of this is fairly similar to the rapid fire. And we're even using some of the, like our amulet is the same amulet we used on our rapid fire build. And then a lot of the way that the build works inherently is very similar. So what's nice about this is that if you decide you don't like barrage or you don't like rapid fire, it's a pretty easy switch over, and you're able to essentially do all the same content. The rapid fire is a little bit more powerful at bossing. The barrage is a little bit more universally good, like it's faster at running pits and nightmare dungeons and hell tides and all that. But it takes a little bit longer for the bosses, maybe one extra stagger or whatever the case is. You saw we beat Uber Lilith. I'll link the video down below, and there would have been a clip at the front. So we tear her down. So the build is fantastic. It just kind of depends. But I will say this is probably my favorite that I've done so far this league. I do prefer it over the rapid fire. Again, bossing damage is slightly less, but overall it is more fun. It's faster. It's a lot of fun. So again, we are on the Harlequin crest. We crafted this with all of our cinders and all that kind of stuff. If you don't have this yet, just get a helmet with chance to freeze, cooldown reduction, life, maybe a dex or whatever's working for you, but cooldown reduction and life are really nice. And then as far as aspect, what I would use is when you dodge, gain fortify. So that's the aspect that I would use if you're just using a normal helmet and you don't yet have Shakos. Body armor, the big one here is just resists and then plus to dark shroud. So you really want to try to get bonus to dark shroud. It helps a lot with survivability. And then chance to freeze. As far as aspect, critical strikes with marksman, 60% chance to grant a free dark shroud. So we do not have to have it in our bar. We generate it as we're critically striking with barrage. So super nice, really nice for survivability. Gloves, we're looking for that, plus 2 barrage. Obviously, we got lucky and got a greater affix here. Crit strike chance, we have a little bit of armor here, and then chance to freeze and crit strike damage. Basic skills gain 30% increased attack speed. It's really nice because we use combo points, so it really helps us stack those combo points super fast so that we get max damage on our barrage. Pants, dodge chance, life, dex, a little bit of armor. Again, chance to freeze. We put chance to freeze on everything that we can. And then basic skills grant 20% damage reduction for 7 seconds. You could also use the dodge grants fortify. I go back and forth on which one I prefer. They're fairly equal. The difference is, honestly, when you have full fortify, I think it's better. But when you don't have full fortify, against bosses and stuff like that, this one feels a little bit better. Boots, movement speed, caltrops, evade cooldown, just because, we don't have the +3 on these. We hit that, we got really lucky on a double 25% increase on the masterwork. So this is just so much movement speed that this is what I'm using until I can replace them. But again, chance to freeze, and then damaging an enemy has a 20% chance to daze them, 20% increased damage to dazed enemies. Again, that stacks with bosses. It helps us stagger them faster, but then also we get that 20% increase when they are downed. As far as we use a crossbow because we want the weapon mastery bonus for crossbows, not bows here. So, and again, pretty standard. dex, life, crit strike damage, and then chance for barrage to cast twice, and then crit strike damage. And then we use on our aspect, distant enemies have a 10% chance to be stunned. That doesn't really matter. The top line, we're really there for the 60% increased damage to stunned or knocked down enemies. So whenever you stagger a boss or whatever, this is primarily a bossing aspect. You could move this somewhere else and then add, increased damage with primary resource or damage while standing still, whatever the case is, and just get a general damage increase. But this is specifically for bossing. It's huge damage when the boss has been staggered, because if you didn't know, when a boss is down and staggered, it counts for all crowd control effects: freeze, chill, stun, daze, all of them. So any effects that you have that interact with that will do damage to a down boss. And then weapons, both pretty standard: dex, life, crit strike damage, chance for barrage to cast twice, and then crit strike damage. So these are both, essentially the same thing. We have a greater aspect on crit damage, and then we have it on life here. And then we use, after attacking enemies with base skill 3 times, increases your core by 10% up to 30. And then also the barrage now pierce one enemy and has 25% increased attack speed. So those are pretty nice. As far as rings go, dex, attack speed, crit strike damage, cold imbue, and then crit strike damage. I have been thinking it might be nice to replace, both of them are attack speed. It might be nice to replace one of those with crit strike chance and get a little bit more out of it. But for now, this feels pretty good. So, but that is interchangeable. Life, you could have dex, attack speed, crit strike chance, but you definitely want the crit strike damages, and the cold imbue lasts for 2 or ideally 3 additional casts. This one only has 2, this one has 3, and they're not fully leveled. And as far as our amulet, we have a really, really strong amulet. And as you're leveling, obviously we have +3 to frigid finesse, and then we have the greater affix on weapon mastery, and it also increased. So this hit really nicely, and it's super powerful. As you're leveling, just try to find either one with frigid finesse or weapon mastery until you can get them both. And then that'll hold you over. But having both frigid finesse and weapon mastery is fantastic. I think best case scenario here, instead of having life, maybe we have % dex. I think that would be pretty crazy. And then as far as our aspect, we use the top line doesn't matter. Enemies hit by your grenades. We don't use grenades, but you deal 38% times increased critical strike damage to frozen or stunned enemies. So this works really well for mapping and for bossing, because again, if the enemy is staggered, or if the boss is staggered, they count as frozen, so we do that damage. And then also, while we're just mapping and running dungeons and pit, we freeze everything. I believe we have a we have a 90% chance to freeze. So things freeze almost, 9 out of 10 hits, things freeze. So this is an insane amount of damage. As far as our aspects on our rings, I can go over that. Increased damage the arrows that ricochet from barrage, etc., etc. And then critical strike chance with your core skills increase your attack speed by 25%. So that's that. That's the gear. Again, we're using combo points. Let's get right into the skill tree. We'll start at the top here. So we use puncture, and again, all skills have +4 because we have Shaco's. So Shaco's super powerful, adds a lot. Universally pretty good. So if you're going to craft a unique, I recommend crafting Shaco's, just because you can use it pretty much on any build and get a really nice damage increase and also damage reduction. So we're puncture into fundamental puncture, and then we have barrage into advanced barrage. Then we take all 3 into sturdy and to siphoning strikes. Again, it is a range character, but your typical, or barrage is a marksman skill. You'd think it'd be range, but generally we're pretty close on things when we're trying to shotgun things down. So we take these, take 2 into stutter step, or 3 into stutter step, get that movement speed. Caltrops, we only have 1, but again, we have 4 on our boots, and then we have 4 from Shaco, so that takes us to 9. And then we go into deal cold damage and chills, so this helps with stagger. And again, enhanced Caltrops, if you have a tough enemy or a tough pack, not only does it work to kind of get away and give you another movement, to kind of back out of things, but as things stand in it longer, they take a massive damage increase. So it's really nice for bossing and for difficult packs in high pits and things like that. that. Weapon mastery, obviously we have +5 on our amulet, so it's up to 8, which is giving us a 40% times increased critical strike damage when we're using crossbows, so that's an insane damage increase. As far as Shadow Step, we go all the way up into Methodical because this just helps us stagger the boss faster, but then also gives us Unstoppable if we get frozen or anything like that. With Dash, we only go into Enhanced Dash. This is another, thing that you can use if, you have a really rough pack or, a boss. If you dash through it, they're going to take increased critical strike damage from you for 5 seconds. So it's nice for, evading and things like that. It's a much longer dash than the default one, but also it will increase the damage the enemy takes if you dash through it. We take 3 into Agile just to give us some dodge. 3 in exploit, 3 in malice. You could also look for these on your amulet. Exploit is okay, malice is pretty good, so these are also acceptable because monsters are typically vulnerable. Dark Shroud, again, we have our 5 points into it, and then we have 4 from Shakos, and then we have 4 from our body armor. So that takes us up to 13 and gives us 12.8% damage reduction per Dark Shroud. So that's pretty crazy. And then we take the movement speed. Crit strike chance might be nice too, but we're on the movement speed. It just helps, especially when you're fighting Lilith and stuff, to be able to outrun all the things that chase you and all that kind of stuff. So as far as cold imbuement, we only have 1 point in it, and then we get 4 from our Shakos just because there's no damage increase. There's only a chill increase, which, is fine, but we have so much chance to freeze and other forms of chill and stuff that 1 point is enough, and then, 4 from the Shakos. Then we go down to cold imbue, deal 20% damage to crowd controls enemy, double this to frozen. So again, that works against bosses when they're staggered and all that. Frigid Finesse, super powerful. 60% increased damage to frozen enemies, so that's a bonkers, damage increase. And then, we get 3 from our amulet. We come down in here, lucky hit, chance to gain 8 energy. Barrage is fairly expensive on the resources, so this is just nice to have and helps keep our resource up a bit. And then we're using precision. As far as our Paragon, we start with imbued damage, and then, we're taking all this, get some resists. We take pretty much everything in this first tree. Then we go up into exploit weakness. And then our glyph is canny, non-fizz, and then obviously the bonus on this one is really good. Non-fizz damage increase all the non-fizz they take up to 10% for 15 seconds. So, that stacks up pretty quick with barrage. 1 or 2 barrages and they're already at that max damage increase. And then next, I believe we went up to cheap shot. And then our glyph is control. We just take enough to get the bonus. As you can see, the bonus 10% increased damage to slowed or chilled, or 20% to stunned or frozen. So a nice damage increase. 100% crowd control damage is nice, but the bonus is the primary reason why we're there. And then we creep over to no witnesses, but here we're just taking a glyph socket chip. Early on, we used exploit here. Just until we had a proper way to generate vulnerability, but now you have multiple ways with puncture, with cold imbue, so making enemies vulnerable is super easy. So we're not actually even using exploit anymore. Physical damage, we use this. We're obviously not getting much when the cold imbue is up, but the bonus is really nice, right? So physical damage increases the damage takes by 1% up to 10% for 15 seconds. So even if you're using cold imbue, every puncture that you hit will add 1% up to 10%, and 15 seconds is quite a long time. We keep it up pretty much all the time just because we're constantly throwing out 3 punctures and then a barrage, 3 punctures and then a barrage, so that damage is almost always up. This was actually a viewer told me to try this out, and it definitely felt good over exploit or some of the other ones, just simply because of the bonus that you get from this. Then next we creep down over to Leyrana's Instinct, and we're just using this to path down to Cunning Stratagem. But here we have the crit strike damage. You get a ton of int out of this particular cluster. So, we're getting 194% crit strike damage. And then, obviously the bonus is nice just to restore part of their energy cost. And then again, lastly, we come down to Cunning Stratagem just to get that bonus. You don't get damage bonus, but you get additional arrows. This works with Barrage and with Rapid Fire. So, oh, sorry. And then lastly, our last one is we creep over here to Eldritch Bounty. And then, attack with an imbued skill, you gain max res, and then they take 20% increased damage from that element for 9 seconds. So that's a pretty nice damage increase. And then, we roll by this one. There's no way we're going to hit the strength bonus here. But still, it's nice, and we're right here. It's only 2 points. So that's that, and that's the Paragon. So that's the build, guys. Hopefully that was helpful, and you guys can go ahead and kind of make your own versions of it. We'll jump into this real quick just so you can see. We're pretty much capped on all resistances. We have 2600 crit strike damage. We have very little vulnerability because, again, just the way that the damage buckets work now. You used to have to, you would want to spread these out, but now it just doesn't matter. You're better off focusing, and because we use precision, we get a 441% times damage increase, when you're consuming your precision. So sometimes you just get absolutely insane, damage. If you're using something like victimize, obviously this is where you stack your vulnerability and things like that. So I do like the way they've kind of made those adjustments, but that's it, guys. Again, the build's been a lot of fun. This is probably my favorite one that I've done this league. So let me know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.